The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everybody. Good crack-a-noon to our friends on the East Coast. I am Todd Obert, President and CEO of Productive Corporation. Joined here alongside me is Mr. Selby Philippos. Hopefully I got that right, Selby. Senior Solutions Architect at Barracuda. And we are going to be talking about Barracuda Total Mail, and pretty cool stuff. It's interesting to see what's happening relative to O365 and how some people are very covered, some people are very exposed, is kind of where I will leave that. So if you have done these in the past, you know how we do it. We meet productive in 1 minute. Then we go to turn it over for some real content. Today, like I said, we're talking about the total email protection. Going to talk about the full solution, how it works with advanced threats and sandboxing, archiving, e-discovery, and then what happens if a threat gets in and how does that get remediated. As always, utilize the chat feature for questions and we will get them answered along the way. But for now, buckle up. Let's meet productive in 1 minute. So who is Productive? Well, even though you're muted, I'm very glad you asked. Productive Corporation provides security solutions for mid-sized companies. We offer specialized expertise to answer technical licensing questions. We also implement, test, and optimize all the products that we sell, whether that's a security assessment, AD security services, configuration assistance, and UTM services for appliances. Anything that we sell, we can help you implement. We also offer a lot of third-party content. You can find this on our website or at productivecorp.com, Solving Security. Includes our blogs, includes articles, includes recorded webinars like this one, which will be up there. Bottom line is we can help you no matter what it is. Implementation, assessment, licensing, or optimization services. Help at productivecorp.com. Get a hold of us. Send an email to help. We will do our best to help you. And one of the ways that we do that is by producing great educational content. Like I said at the top of the broadcast today, we are very lucky to have Selby Philippos here from Barracuda to talk about Barracuda's total email solution. He is hailed out of Dallas, Texas, and he loves to talk about security and total mail. And when he's not doing that, he's out helping the farmers kind of control their hog population. So pretty interesting stuff that I think I'm curious to learn more about that. But for now, we're going to talk about total mail. So Selby, are you ready to go? I can see your screen.
Yeah, I'm ready to go and looking forward to be able to sharing some information with everyone out there.
All right, well, let's do it.
All right, great, guys. So again, as mentioned, my name is Selby Philippos. I'm one of the senior solution architects for Barracuda Networks. My primary focus is on security. And today we're talking about Barracuda's total email protection solution. The reason I called this is your kryptonite, securing beyond the gateway, is a lot of organizations spend a lot of time and effort on securing their environment, right? And they have this high level of confidence. And, you know, all of you might be familiar with the character Superman, and very, very strong, has all these, you know, resources and skills and talents and strengths. And unfortunately, there is something that brings a witness to him. And just like that, today's world is focused on threats that are hitting a lot of organizations. And unfortunately, 92 to 93% of attacks typically start through email. So I consider that the kryptonite for a lot of organizations. So moving on today. So who am I and who are we? So again, my name is Selby Philippos. I am a senior solutions architect. Over 20 years of experience working in the IT space. I've worked in publicly traded companies, worked with state, local education, enterprises, medical industries, financial industries, oil and gas industries. So a lot of different experiences from a lot of different verticals, a lot of different types of businesses, and try to bring all of that information together when I design solutions for organizations. Now, Barracuda is a portfolio company. We are a security-minded company, and we provide solutions around email protection, network and app security, and we also help to protect your data. And we actually see data protection as part of a security standpoint and part of your, your security solution. Barracuda Networks has been protecting and processing over 1 billion emails a day, right? We have over 80,000 email protection customers. We have implemented artificial intelligence in email threat defense, and we archive over 19 billion messages. And we are one of the leaders in spam and virus protection since 2003. Just a little bit more insight on Barracuda. We have been recognized by the Gartner Peer Insights. And for those of you that are familiar with Gartner, that's typically an organization that looks at technology. Now, why do we focus on the Peer Insights? Because this is more important to Barracuda. We really want to know what our customers think. And continuously, for many years, Barracuda customers have helped us become the leader in the Gartner Peer Insights in providing a solution that our customers really stand behind. So getting into the solution, right? We consider security a platform. And as I stated, Barracuda is a portfolio company with quite a few different solutions, right? And, as I stated before, we do email, we do data protection, we do network and application security. So a lot of our solutions, from firewalls and application firewalls, are email security, security awareness and training, utilizing things like artificial intelligence and machine learning, secure gateways to be able to provide URL filtering and safe surfing, right? But we also have a global threat intelligence layer that goes on top of all of our solutions and allows us to share our threat intelligence across different platforms, different verticals. We also are allowed to look at different vectors of threats, right? So whether it's coming from a network, whether it's coming from applications, whether it's coming from email, this allows us to be able to bring all that threat intelligence to all of our solutions, right? We utilize things like advanced threat protection, which is our fancy name of saying sandboxing technology, a little bit different than some of our competitors in the sense that a lot of our organizations that we compete against use virtual image-based sandboxes, right? Where they'll spin up a VM, where they'll open a package and detonate it to see how it reacts. Unfortunately, in today's modern world, what we're seeing is a lot of these threats, or malware, if you want to call it that, ransomware, is able to determine whether or not it's being executed in a virtualized environment. Barracuda kind of took a different approach, and we use what's called hardware emulation or CPU emulation, where we're actually presenting these packages with hardware to manipulate. And that allows us to see higher efficiency and effectiveness in those being detonated in our sandboxes. Right? Combine that with the reputation analytics that we gain from all the different vectors of threats that we see, our Barracuda web categorization, our security threat index, and the ability for us to match compliance and orchestrate those solutions. So moving on, our deployment models come in multiple different forms. We have on-premise, we have a hybrid, we're available in the public cloud, and also with MSPs or service providers, right? You can turn to the partners and be able to say, hey, how can you help me out with security solutions? And we can work with a solution that'll best fit your need.
Hey, Selby.
Yes.
When you get to the total mail, will you highlight if there are differences between the on-prem or the hybrid or cloud version of the product?
Sure, I can do that.
Thank you.
So again, real quick, while we sum this up, a focused portfolio, again, focused on security, and we still consider data protection as part of that security solution. So now let's get to the point. Why are we here today, right? Email-borne risk is an essential threat. And typically what everybody's been kind of focused on is they have a solution that's typically considered an email gateway, where all the email comes in, gets filtered, and then gets sent on to whether or not they're on-prem Exchange or their Google or Office 365 or whatever solution that they're using for their communications. The story. Now, all of us, come across these articles in the news. We see them day to day. So many different organizations, so many different attacks. And again, as we stated, 93% of emails or of attacks are started through email, right? And so, what I look at as one of my roles is to help my customers and my partners to find solutions to prevent, becoming another headline, right? Almost 3/4 of all attacks start with email attachments or a link, right? And that's from the SANS analyst program. Now, over the last decade, we've kind of seen a transition in the types of attacks, right? Back in the early 2000s, a lot of this was, spam and malware, right? And then we had to deal with regulatory compliances. Then we started seeing things like zero-day attacks, right? Where viruses would come out nobody'd ever seen before. But that started getting a little bit more advanced, right? There was a little bit more dynamics that were being involved, and that started evolving into phishing or brand impersonation. From there, they started kind of going up market, and they started going after ransomware and kind of making it financial in nature, right? Spear phishing and social engineering started to kind of play a role in that. We started seeing hackers start doing research on targets, right? And using open source information to be able to identify targets, identify psychologically and physically how they could attack different organizations or individuals. They started trying to compromise business email. And finally, now it's really about, can I get an account that I can take over to exploit, right? Gain access to, intellectual property or specific information that could help, either hurt an organization or hold it for ransom, correct? So in the early days, it was pretty simple. We had the internet, we had our mail server, we had our inboxes and our employees. We put in a gateway or a spam firewall in the infamous beginnings of Barracuda. We used to call it our email spam firewall. And that would help kind of filter out that spam and malware and allow legitimate mail to flow through. Now, within that gateway, we started looking at things like data loss prevention, being able to back up our email, archive our email for compliance reasons, right? And then we started adding things like sandboxing to be able to handle those zero-day threats, right? Ransomware, malware. But then social engineering came into the play, right? Social media started exploding. People started sharing information online. People were able to start using that to be able to figure out passwords, targets at different organizations, who they could go after, what might be the most viable solution for them to be able to exploit and make money off of. Later on, we started having things like VOD, right? Bring your own devices to work. We started having employees that were accessing email on their personal devices. And now that starts opening up a new avenue for attacks where the corporate environments were being secured by these gateways, but then now they had a backdoor through personal devices. And spear phishing could come in through those type of accounts. And at that point, you now have a problem where the corporations and the enterprises and the businesses had to figure out, how do I prevent my accounts getting taken over? Well, that's why traditional security is not enough, right? We can do all the reputation filtering, we can do all the content filtering, we can do the sandboxing, right? And we can provide those services, but social engineering kind of changed that game. So securing the gateway, we still need to do that. We still need to protect against those kind of things with like sandboxing and filters and things like that, but it's not sufficient, right? If we start looking at what a hacker or a malicious person is looking at right now, right? This is an anatomy of attack. And typically when a hacker targets a company, they're using social networks or other internet data. A term that we use in the security space is called OSINT or open source information. And by utilizing this information and following like a social trail, we can identify employees, other employees, right? People that know those employees. And they'll utilize this to craft a fake, but an email that somebody would probably realize is either a colleague or a boss. Now that personalized email was sent to an employee. with a link or an attachment. And what happens is because of all the research they've done, they've been able to bypass a lot of these filters, and that arrives at an employee's inbox. Well, unknowingly, right, our employee will click on that email and either open an attachment. And at that point, it's either going to be a website that steals credentials, or it's going to be malware to infect the computer, the smartphone, the network, right, lock up resources. And then they can either steal or hold that information for ransom. So that's kind of that life cycle, right? And this is a lot of the things that, you know, we in the security space have to try to kind of figure out, how do we handle this? Kind of giving you an example. Now, this is from a true incident that happened. We do have permission from this individual who provided this email as an example to use this. But as you can see here, this looks like a standardized business email that was sent out, right? Unfortunately, this came from a compromised account. Somebody had already gained access to this organization's email system and utilized this email to send out to other people to be able to extract financial gains, right? So there's just kind of things here that we can look for, right? We can't tell that the account has been compromised, but we can look at the to field and see that it's not designated for a specific individual. They've hidden who it's being sent to. Now, our normal users probably wouldn't be able to figure this out, but when you look at these links, it's pointing to a suspicious URL, right? And so unless you've gone through techniques and training to be able to teach all of your staff how to identify these things, they look at this email and they see a legitimate email from a legitimate business that they've probably done business with, and it's got all the information that they're normally used to seeing. Just another example, when we're starting to look at spear phishing using employee impersonation, right? If you look at these emails, there's no attachments, there's no links, there's no malware, there's none of the things that our traditional gateways are looking for to be able to secure against. Those filters are going to look at this and go, okay, it's just a clean email, send it on. But unfortunately, the hackers have basically come in and figured out who the employees are, used those as display names, right? And sent these emails to other employees to be able to get them to engage in conversations, right? These may be just the beginning of an entire chain of emails, an entire process that they go through before they actually reveal what they're trying to do. Another thing that we've seen is in some cases that first email may look legitimate, but then when you hit reply, it's going to somebody totally different, right? In this case, we can see this one looks like it's coming from CUDA-SE-team.us, but when you look at the reply to address, it's coming from a malicious actor on a totally different platform. So again, there's nothing here that's malicious by default when you're looking at an analog or just a linear approach to creating filters, right? So the email is, the gateway is the foundation for defense, right? And it protects inbound mail from spam, malware, the zero-day attacks that we talked about using ATP and sandboxing to block malicious attachments. Those gateway solutions also provide us with the opportunity to protect outbound email from distribution of spam and malicious email. They can help us with data loss prevention, right? Stopping those data leaks with secure messaging and being able to encrypt that messaging as it's going out. They also provide us a way to be able to retain and preserve email with tamper-proof policy-based email archiving. If your organization requires being compliant, right? Being able to do that or answer and address e-discovery requests. But building resiliency to mitigate risk of downtime is another option, right? We started talking about data protection, protecting those organizations in the event that something does happen. How do we recover from it? How do we not be held hostage to pay a ransom if something does happen, right? Even within Office 365, if you look at the service availability agreement that they provide you, they recommend that you turn to a third party, right, to protect your data and back it up. They're not responsible for it, right? Or what happens if Office 365 has an outage? How does your organization deal with no ability to communicate via email? What does that impact look like? So having a system like the Barracuda solution provides you with email continuity to be able to stay connected during any kind of outage or downtime. It allows you to continue to send and receive email and make sure that your business continuity stays there and your staff stays productive during that outage. So before we start getting into this next step, I want to stop for a second and address the question that was brought up. Todd said, you know, what is the difference between our solutions on an on-prem, a hybrid, or the public cloud? There really isn't a whole lot of differences. The underlying technology in the platform is primarily the same. It's just a matter of whether or not you want to be responsible for hardware, managing and maintaining that hardware platform, having the additional cost, you know, the total cost of ownership model, right? The operating expenses, the cooling expenses, the maintenance expenses, the staff to be able to maintain that. Do you have that organizational structure to handle that hardware? Or do you want to go to a cloud model, right? Offload all of those worries and just have a software as a solution, and that software just works for you. It gets updated as it needs, it's maintained and monitored, right? The uptimes are typically higher. And then you have the public cloud, right? Where all of that's going to be handled for you. So you can have a mix, you can have a hardware solution, but at the end of the day, the protection is almost the same. Now, where this does deviate is for organizations that are looking at Office 365 or that are in Office 365. This next section that we're getting into, where we're talking about the AI for social engineering, our machine learning capabilities, that's not available in a hardware platform, and it's only available for Office 365 through our cloud services. So that's going to be the biggest difference when you're looking at the solution, is once you are in the cloud and once you're utilizing those technologies, the doors open for the level of security and the things that we can bring to bear to provide defenses against the attacks. And one of those is the capability to bring artificial intelligence to be able to counteract that social engineering type of attacks, right?
So but you're seeing, right, more of the customers, new purchases, or they're migrating, right? Stuff's going hybrid, going to the cloud. That's the long-term trend.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, let's be open and honest, right, and transparent. Microsoft is currently transitioning most of their customers. They're making it to where Exchange is becoming kind of either pricey or outdated, and they really want you to take benefit of Office 365. Not only that, the capabilities of moving to the cloud and moving to a solution like Office 365 greatly increases productivity. We are seeing probably an 85% of organizations are either in the process of moving or are moved to Office 365 or to cloud solutions overall. So it's just a matter of time where that becomes the norm, right? If you think back, you know, when I first started getting into IT 21 years ago, most organizations ran their own mail servers, or didn't run their own mail servers. Your service providers, right? Think about it, you know, before Yahoo, before Gmail, you would sign up with your internet provider, AOL or AT&T or, you know, Southwestern Bell, depending on where you are, and you would get an email address from them. Organizations or businesses would sign up for internet and get their email from them. Then came the Exchange environment, right? Lotus Notes, right? Things like that, Novell, right? And then we started moving to managing and maintaining your own mail server. Well, just as that transition occurred, now we're seeing that transition of not having your own mail server, not being responsible for that, and letting the cloud solutions provide that. But the productivity that's around that and the capabilities that are available in the cloud is so much greater. So as I stated, we are seeing a majority of organizations are either in the process of migrating, have been migrated, and then there's a small percentage that at some point that conversation's already started and they just haven't made a determination. But in the long term, you're probably going to see, you know, majority, maybe 90, 95% of organizations where the cloud makes more sense, right? And then, like I say, the productivity capabilities. Once you go to the cloud, for example, with Office 365, now you've got, you know, other things like OneDrive, SharePoint, Teams that make, you know, work easier. It makes productivity increase. So it provides a whole lot more benefits than just having an Exchange server on your prem. So with that being said, and moving to the cloud and all the solutions that'll help kind of protect you there, Barracuda developed a solution called Sentinel that utilizes artificial intelligence to kind of counteract that social engineered attack, right? And these are those attacks that I'm talking about that come, in a way that avoid what the gateways or what the filters typically look for. The other benefit by doing this, utilizing machine learning in the cloud, is it allows us to be able to see both internal and external sources. So if you have an account that gets compromised within the organization, we're able to see that communication and identify that there's a threat there. But we're also able to look at emails that are coming from outside of your organization and see if there's a threat there. By being able to see those threats, we can detect whether or not an account takeover attempt is occurring, and if there's any attacks that are being launched from those compromised accounts. The other benefit is with this being in the cloud and with the capabilities of the APIs that are exposed that we work with, we're able to go in and do some remediation, right? Be able to make sure that if we detect that an account's being taken over or attacked, that we can actually go in real time, remediate that account or solve that problem before they are able to cause any damage. Along with that, a lot of organizations may or may not be deploying DMARC or enabling DMARC as part of their DNS security. Our solution does provide you with a way to be able to deploy DMARC and protect your reputation and your domain from being used in fraud, right? How do you stop another malicious person from standing up a mail server, configuring it to say your organization's domain, right? Let's say we have abccorp.com. I personally can spin up a piece of software that's a mail server, figure it to where when it sends email, it comes out as abccorp.com. Well, DMARC allows you to stop that, right? It gives you the capabilities to see visibility in how your email domain is being used, how those emails are being treated, and it puts the power of whether or not that email is going to be accepted by the recipient in your hands. You control what happens with emails that are authorized by your organization, but you also control what happens to emails that are sent from non-authorized senders, right? And that's where the power of DMARC comes in, and having a tool and a solution to be able to work with that really kind of helps.
So, but do you have a picture of the user interface or how it would look to the, the customer, the admin or whoever's using it?
Not within this slide, but I can pull it up here. We've got a couple more slides and I can pull it up.
Okay, perfect. That'd be awesome.
Yep. So just to kind of explain why this transition occurred, back when Barracuda kind of started looking at artificial intelligence, what we noticed is just within a 2-year span, we noticed that the attacks that we were able to detect increased by 2.1 million, right? That was a 2.1 million increase. So using solutions that are basically built in the cloud kind of helped us gain the capability to increase our capabilities in detecting those attacks. Now here comes kind of the Achilles heel for most IT or admins or security guys. We kind of look at the users traditionally as a weakness. And unfortunately, we kind of say, hey, the user's a liability. Well, if we kind of change gears, shift our thinking, and we can deploy training and some simulations, we can actually create an asset that can help us fight against attacks. Now, how do we do that? You've got to have an organized and formal security and awareness training program, right? And a lot of organizations nowadays, when they're looking at business insurance or cyber insurance, this is one of the requirements that are starting to come up, is having a security and training program. That program has to be comprehensive, right? And what that does is it's helping to turn your users into that last line of defense, into a human firewall. Now you have to be able to provide simulations, right? Simulate different attacks, be able to kind of use socially engineered attacks to be able to train your users to identify what to look for. What are the caveats? What are the weird things, right? How do I identify whether or not the link's legitimate? How do I know that, this is not really who sent it, or this email doesn't say that it's really from who it's from? right? We've got to be able to simulate those situations where we can put them in real world experiences. We've got to be able to provide them training, right, proactively, to be able to detect and report on phishing attacks. That helps by lowering the risk of an impact of a future attack, right? And as an organization, we've got to be able to report and get insights on that. We need to be able to detect trends and patterns. We need to assess the effectiveness of our training and our users' learning, right? Are we strengthening our users or are we not? Do we need a shift in our strategy on how we're training or not? So utilizing a tool to be able to provide security awareness and training helps you to bring up that last line of defense of the human firewall. Now, at the end of the day, there's not a solution in the world that'll ever tell you that it's 100%. And if you ever hear that from anybody, they're either naive or they're lying, but neither way is going to protect you. We need to be able to respond to incidents or emails or attacks that actually make it to our user's inbox. And we all know the user may or may not realize that it's an attack, and they may not always report that attack. Proactive IT investigations take too long, so we've got to be able to identify those attacks. We need to be able to speed up the amount of time and effort that it takes, right? We need to minimize that impact of what an investigation looks like. We can't afford to spend hours and days trying to figure out what happened, or is this an attack or is it not? Searching for emails and recipients manually, right? We've got unconnected systems when we're talking about the cloud. That leads to very tedious and manual checks, and that time causes damage. And then once we've identified what happens, we've got to be able to respond, right? It's manual, it's time consuming. Removal and quarantining a malicious mail takes too long, hours and days. We need to be able to kind of solve these issues in minutes and hours at that point. Barracuda Solutions provides you the capability to do the forensics work, assess threat insights, identify the anomalies in different delivered email, to be able to proactively find attacks that bypassed our email security. We need to be able to identify compromised users in need of training, improve workflows for more seamless incident response. We can see that there's multiple steps, right? They're either reported by the employee or we've got to be able to identify them ourselves. We've got to be able to investigate, search by subject or sender, or allow our users to create an incident. We've got to be able to send alerts to our users or remove malicious content from our inboxes. So as you can see, there are gaps in your email protection stack. You've got to understand why traditional email security gateway is not sufficient to protect from advanced threats. Accessing vulnerabilities in your environment and leveraging and implementing a strategy for forensics and incident response. So to sum it all up, we need to be able to secure more than just a gateway. And as Todd was saying, a lot of organizations are moving to Office 365, and the market's changing. The attacks are changing. The type of vectors that they're coming through are changing, and we've got to be able to address those. So before we get into questions, I would like to bring up the interface to kind of show what Todd was questioning about. Give me 1 second to switch screens here.
Yeah, no, that's great stuff. Show that screen. We're running a little behind here. We're about 11:35 Central. So why don't we show that, and then we'll do a quick wrap, and that'll be great.
Okay. Hey, Todd, are you able to see the screen?
Yeah, that looks great.
Okay, perfect. So this is the dashboard for our Sentinel solution. This is the one that we were kind of talking about with the artificial intelligence, the machine learning that's built into Office 365, utilizing the APIs. As you can see, what we're focused on is real-time phishing, account takeover protection, the DMARC or domain fraud, right? And so each one of those things are brought up in the dashboard, and there's tools provided that'll allow you to see things like, hey, we're talking about those emails, right? Employee impersonations, how do we identify those? Very simply, right? This email is not from the person you think it is. It contains a personalized phishing URL. This email is not allowed to get to your users, right? Service impersonations, right? This is another big one. As a lot of organizations moved Office 365, we're seeing emails that look like this. Can your users identify that, or would a tool that be able to stop that before it gets to your mailboxes? Things like DMARC we were talking about, right? Being able to see how many people are sending emails, see how your emails are getting through. Are the legitimate mail servers sending? Are they not? Being able to identify that, investigate that in this a very timely manner, right? Send up, we don't have to go anywhere to, hunt this information down. Everything is being provided to your admins on a fingertip, right? So without wasting a whole lot more time, I know we ran a little bit long, but Todd, are there any questions, anything specific that you want to see? Or as I stated, Barracuda has a complete portfolio to be able to provide you security. And as I stated, we have a total email protection solution that handles the filtering, that handles the training, that handles the backup and archiving, and also handles the remediation to solve any problems that may arise.
Yeah, no, this has been great. And right, we can help you guys. You want to see a demo of it? That's what Productive can do. Your account exec will be reaching out. Want to thank you, Selby, for a great presentation today.